We've talked about, what have we talked about in order? Well, first thing was the nisab of zakah, the money, and then the zakah of business, and then zakat al-fitr, and then the payment of zakah. And now we say, who do you pay zakah to? Okay. Now the primary verse with regards to this, can someone give me some water? The primary verse with regards to this is Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60. Okay? Surah At-Tawbah, verse 60, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is an important verse because this is the primary and the only, clear verse about who are the recipients of zakah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. That sadaqat, or in this verse refers to zakah. Zakah is only for, and then he mentions 8 categories. Zakah is only for these 8 categories. You cannot give zakah to anyone who does not fall into one of these 8 categories. Okay? So the first category that Allah mentions, what is the verse number first of all? Write this down. Tawbah verse 60. Everyone should go back and know that this is the primary verse when it comes to the recipients of zakah. The first category is, I want you to write down some of the Arabic terms are important. Faqir, fuqara, faqir. Okay? The second category is miskin. What is the difference between faqir and miskin? Faqir and miskin both mean poor people. But fuqara are those people who have less than half of their minimum needs. Okay? This is how the scholars have defined it. Faqir, a person who is faqir, he has less than half of what he really needs. Okay? He can't pay his rent, he can't feed his family. He has less than half of what he really needs. So like the beggars on the street that we see, many of them are faqirs. Well, actually many of them are millionaires even, I hear. You know what I'm saying? They just get a lot of money. But many of them are faqirs in the sense they don't have a house, these are fuqara. A miskin is he who has more than half, but he still doesn't have what he needs. So he might be able to pay his rent, right? But he can't really provide adequate food for his family, for example. So they're poor people, but they're just barely managing to live, but they need some money still. Whereas a faqir is an extremely poor person. Okay? So a faqir, if you like, is an extremely poor person, and the miskin is just a poor person. What is the difference between the two? The scholars say that if you have half of your needs, suppose the person needs a bare minimum, I think the poverty level in America is 10,000, I think, a year. I think that's what the government defines as below the poverty line. So suppose the person has only 5,000 or less. In this case, he'll be qualified as a faqir. From a Sharia perspective, not an American government perspective, okay? If he has more than 5,000 but less than 10, he'll be qualified as miskin, okay? Basically, we're not concerned with numbers or figures. We're concerned with how the person is living. If he can manage to, earn a lot of what he needs, but not all of it, then he is a miskin. If he cannot even manage to do that, then he is a faqir. So you can give zakah to these 2 people. The third category that Allah mentions are the workers for zakah, al-amilina alayha. Now, in the good old times when we had an Islamic state, what would the Khalifa do? He would send out government workers, basically, to collect the zakah. So basically, when you have those government workers that collect the zakah and bring it back, then the Khalifa must pay them their salaries too, so their salaries also come out of zakah. Okay? In our times, this is not applicable, so we can gloss over it. Okay? But know that this is the third category. The fourth category are, write it down, مُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ. مؤلفة قلوبهم. مؤلفة قلوبهم. مؤلفة قلوبهم literally translates as those whose hearts you wish to soften. Okay? Now what is this category meant for? This category is meant again for the Islamic State, not for individuals. Okay? What would occur and what the Prophet ﷺ did sometimes is that he used to give a lot of money to leaders and to chieftains of their tribes. What did this do? It did 2 things. Firstly, it made them sympathetic towards the Muslims. They wouldn't harm the Muslims. Secondly, it made them accept Islam. Many of these people, they accepted Islam. Once the Prophet ﷺ, he gave a whole valley. You know how big a valley is? He gave a whole valley full of flock of sheep to a certain chieftain. A huge, famous chieftain of his tribe. Okay? And that must be literally thousands and thousands of sheep, which might in our times even work out to be multi-million dollars. Okay? Huh? Sheep. Singular and plural, right? Yeah. So he gave him literally thousands and thousands. When this man went back to his nation, right, he said, "O people, accept Islam, for verily this person is a prophet because he does not fear poverty. So the Prophet ﷺ, by giving him that much money, the man was so, if you like, overwhelmed by the Prophet's generosity that he realized this must be a prophet. This must be a prophet. So he said, "O my people, accept Islam, for verily this prophet is a person who is a prophet because he never fears poverty. He never fears he's going to..." No, what man would give that much money? Multi-million dollars he just gave him to a chieftain like that. Okay? What happened? Not only did this tribe become safe from harming the Muslims, not only did they prevent themselves from harming the Muslims, they all accepted Islam. Okay? So one of the people, or one of the categories that you give zakat to, are those people whom either you want to protect Islam from being harmed by, or with, or you want them to come closer to Islam. Okay? Now in our times we cannot apply this category. We should not stand up and give it to our Christian friends and relatives. No. This is meant for the Islamic State. Okay? Suppose they have a country that is at enemies with the Muslim state, then they can give of their zakat money, they can give that country some money, so that that country will become more sympathetic towards Islam and might even accept Islam. So what category was this? The fourth category. The fifth category is the freeing of slaves. Okay? And this shows you the humane concept of slavery in Islam, that one of the ways that you can use zakah is to free slaves. When you know a person who owns a slave, and that slave wishes to be freed, then you're allowed to use your zakah money to free that slave. Buy his freedom from his master. Okay? You can purchase that slave and set him free for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But obviously in our times there is no slavery, so we can again, we don't have to concentrate on this point and the ikhtilaf and all of that in there. Okay? The sixth category is the gharim. Write down the Arabic term, gharim. Al-gharim. The gharim, you know the verse, ya akhi. How can you ask me? Recite the verse. Abdurrahman, recite the verse from the beginning. وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ. It's a meme, gharim. What is a gharim? What is a gharim? A gharim is a number of things fall into it. Basically, firstly, primarily, there are those people who are in debt. They are in debt. They don't have the money to pay off their debt. Okay? As long as the debt was halal, it wasn't haram. I mean, in the sense that they're not taking a debt to open up a haram business. I mean, they took a debt for a halal reason, and for some reason they cannot pay their debt off, then you can give money to those people in debt. Another meaning of gharim, another connotation of gharim is a person who agrees to cause reconciliation between two tribes who are at war by paying a certain money or fee. How does that occur? Suppose now, this was a common in the previous times, that two tribes will be fighting and they kill a person. One person dies. Obviously there's something in Islam known as blood money, okay, which we don't have time to study. That's one of the chapters of fiqh. But basically you have to give blood money as an expiation for that killing that you did. But this blood money is a huge amount. In our times it works out to like $40,000-$50,000, okay, even if not more. So obviously not everyone has this money. So then the tribes are going to be at war because of this blood money. That until you pay us this blood money, we're going to fight you. So one man will stand up and say, no, don't fight, I will pay this blood money on your behalf. So this person who stood up to cause reconciliation between these two people, or these two tribes, or these two communities, then we say that he too is capable of being given zakatu. But if you like a more practical implication, is one who is in debt, also gharim. The seventh category is fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah. In the way of Allah. And these are those who do jihad. These are the mujahidun. That you pay money to them so that they can buy horses, they can buy armor, they can fight for the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're allowed to give zakat to the mujahidun, the mujahids, the people that are doing jihad. You're allowed to give zakat for them.